Story 1. Do not shake open spice containers on top of a steaming pot or pan. The condensed steam will create a moist environment that will cause your spices to clump and spoil faster. Story 2. Cooking temperature descriptors like low and medium are not meant to correlate to numbers on the stovetop burner setting. Just because your knob has settings from 1 to 5 does not mean setting 3 is medium. These descriptors are not intended to correspond to specific numbers, and you may need to adjust your burner setting throughout the cooking process to maintain the desired temperature. For example, adding a new cool ingredient lowers the temperature, so you may want to increase the burner setting to bring it back up more quickly. Conversely, water boiling off helps keep a pan's temperature cooler. So once enough water evaporates, the pan's temperature may start to rise rapidly. Story 3. Sometimes you need to deviate from the recipe. It sounds simple, but many beginner cooks get hung up on what the recipe says and become frustrated when their dish does not turn out. Depending on your stove and cookware, you sometimes have to adjust things. If you taste it and the recipe says you have added enough salt but you think it needs more, add that salt. Story 4. Taste as you go and remember that it is much easier to add more salt and seasoning than to remove it. Story 5. For what it's worth, I have been in the culinary industry for almost 10 years. I recommend learning some basic knife skills. Not only will it make your food look and taste better by having more consistently sized ingredients, but it will also keep your hands safe from cuts. It might save you a finger or two the next time you try to dice an onion. Sharpening and honing your knives is also very important. It does not matter if it is a cheap Costco knife or a Japanese sushi knife. You should hone your blade 10 to 12 times on each side after every 10 minutes of use. Get yourself an affordable honer and you will save money by not needing to replace dull knives frequently. Story 6. A falling knife has no handle. In other words, let that drop. Don't try to catch it. Story 7. When cooking beef, dry the meat as thoroughly as possible before adding it to a hot pan. Slowly cooking beef releases a lot of moisture, which prevents browning and flavor development. Use a tea kettle to bring water to a boil faster than on your stovetop. Story 8. When baking, if you can smell it, it is probably done. I tell this to all my children, and they rarely burn anything in the oven. Story 9. Salt in oatmeal, vodka in pie crust. Vinegar or lemon splash in every dish before it goes to the table. More salt. Corn flour on potatoes for crispness. More salt. Story 10. Whatever the recipe says about garlic or vanilla, it is not enough. No, I do not mean another quarter teaspoon. I mean maybe double it and then see if it tastes okay. Story 11. Do not let anyone criticize you for using onion or garlic powder. Story 12. Prepare everything before you start. Taste your food as you go. Use fresh ingredients, they make a difference. Do not forget the salt, but do not overdo it. Let meat rest before cutting it. Keep recipes simple. Less is more. Mistakes happen. Just learn from them. They have worked for me. Story 13. Do not be afraid to fail. Everyone makes bad food sometimes. Do not take it personally. Story 14. Higher heat does not necessarily mean it will cook faster. In some cases, you can crisp the outside while the inside is still raw. Story 15. Add some acid, such as vinegar or citrus, near the end of the cooking process. It will make all of the flavors brighter. Story 16. Season at every step. Clean up as you go. Start with a clean kitchen. Never skip preparation. Story 17. You can either wash your hands multiple times throughout the cooking process or wash your hands multiple times after the contents of your stomach decide which end to exit first. Story 18. Mise en place. Have everything measured and cut before you start cooking. Buy a well-balanced knife and sharpen it regularly. Watch some ingredient cutting techniques on YouTube. They will profoundly change your cooking experience. Patience and lower temperatures will reduce stress and enhance taste. Taste regularly and season properly. Start simple with ingredients you like. Story 19. Wash your hands before you start cooking and after handling raw meat. Story 20. A pinch of something is not the smallest, daintiest speck you can get on your fingers. It is the absolute maximum quantity you can manage to pick up in one go with your large fingers. Otherwise, your food will taste underseasoned and bland. Story 21. Clean while you are cooking and preparing. It will save you from a sink full of dishes at the end. Story 22. If you want to be a proficient cook, you need to start by learning to make a series of basic meal components and combine them to make a meal. Then learn how to make some other basic meals. Learn how to make a basic green salad using something other than iceberg lettuce. Add other greens and vegetables such as onion and tomato. Find 1 or 2 different high-quality salad dressings. At some point, you might make your own dressings, but you do not need to start there. You can actually turn a salad into a well-balanced, filling meal by adding croutons, crumbled or sliced cheese, and pieces of fried or roasted chicken. Once you have a basic salad, you can do much more with it. Next, learn how to prepare pasta. Find a spaghetti that you like and make it. Add a little butter, some sprinkled garlic powder, and a bit of Italian seasoning. That is a meal. Keep practicing by learning how to make things that are really easy and basic components of a meal. Story 23. Buy the plastic wrap that comes in 18-inch by 30 feet rolls from Sam's, Costco, or a restaurant supply store. Everything else is garbage. I cook a lot and keep multiple freezers full of ingredients bought in bulk, and the rolls last me about a year. Story 24. Emerald taught me this. The knobs on your cooktop are adjustable for a reason. Story 25. Try to understand the purpose of every step. For example, the purpose of browning minced meat is to reduce the water content and increase the concentration of flavor. Story 26. Always use salted butter, even if the recipe calls for unsalted. Story 27. If you want the best recipes for Italian food, search for what you want, but add the word nana's to the front of it. Nana means grandma in Italian. For example, Nana's tomato sauce recipe. You will get the best results this way. Story 28. You always need about 4 times as many cloves of garlic as most recipes call for. Story 29. Number 1. Foolproof way to cook rice. Use 1 times the amount of rice and 2 times the amount of water. Add salt to the water and put it on the stove. Wash the rice. Once the water boils, pour the rice in, stir, add the lid, and turn off the stove. Leave it for 25 minutes while you prepare the other parts of the meal. Number 2. Meatballs. If your meatballs look gray coming out of the pan, put them in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes for an amazing brown glaze. Story 30. When you cook a dish for the first time, start cooking at 7 p.m. Why? If you make a mistake, there is still a restaurant open. Seriously, it is frustrating when you cook late at night, end up hungry with a bad dish, and cannot even order a pizza. Story 31. Continuously taste as you cook, especially when preparing sauces. Story 32. Adding salt does not necessarily make your food salty. It enhances the flavor. Story 33. Especially when cooking a recipe for the first time, allow enough time. Prepare all your ingredients first. Avoid the panic of chopping ingredients while others are burning. At every opportunity, clean utensils, bowls, knives, and benches as you go. Do not work in a cluttered mess. Story 34. You can fix any sauce if you temper it. Cornstarch, flour, hot water, and lemon can all fix a broken sauce. Add the ingredient to a ramekin of sauce, stir, then add to the pan. Story 35. Measurements matter. Do not just eyeball the recipe unless you have really mastered it. It makes a world of difference each time. Story 36. Has anyone already mentioned reading the whole recipe before you start cooking? There is nothing like realizing something needs to chill for an hour between steps or that a certain ingredient needs to be pre-cooked or prepped. Story 37. Turn down the heat on the burner. More heat does not cook food faster. It does cause burning faster. Story 38. Season it before you cook it. Season it while you are cooking it. Season it after you cook it. Story 39. A falling knife has no handle. Do not try to catch it. A sharper knife is safer to use than a blunt knife. You can always add, but you cannot remove. Story 40. Call in a knowledgeable friend to help. Back away slowly. Wait, Enjoy your meal. Story 41. Not profound, but I made a simple improvement to cheese on toast and find it very difficult to go back. Butter your toast. Top with grated cheese. Add some chopped red onion. Optional. Sprinkle liberally with smoked paprika. Grill. The smoked paprika melts along with the cheese, and aside from the added flavor, it looks amazing. Lastly, add plenty of pepper. Story 42. If you are making crepes, be sure the pan is hot before putting the dough in. Story 43. My rice, whether white or brown, is perfect every time. I never rinse or wash it. I put it in a pot, add twice as much water or broth, and a dash of olive oil. I bring it to a boil, then simmer with the lid on for however long feels right. I receive compliments on it all the time. Story 44. Use a meat thermometer to cook your meat to the perfect doneness. Story 45. Never cut meat open to see if it is done. That is how you lose all the delicious juice. Story 46. Never attempt to fry something in a cold pan or cold oil. Heat both the pan and the oil or butter if that is what you are using. If frying in butter, heat it until all the water in the butter evaporates before adding your food. It is acceptable to keep butter at room temperature, but always keep it covered. Story 47. Learn how to use spices and seasonings well, and I am not talking about pre-packaged mixes. My dinners are almost always chicken and vegetables, but seasoned differently all the time so I never get bored. For example, last night was black bean sauce, and the night before was curry. Also, consider buying spices in bulk here in Australia. It is about the same price for 500 grams of some spices as it is for a tiny shaker bottle of the same spice. Story 48. Cut food into similarly sized pieces so that they cook evenly and look better on the plate. Story 49. Never in cooking history has anyone ruined a recipe by adding too much cheese. Never. Story 50. Let your pan and oil, butter, or fat heat completely before cooking. It takes just 30 to 60 extra seconds but results in better searing and frying. Let your meat rest for a few minutes before cutting or serving. Story 51. Almost never add food to a cold pan or oven. Preheat the pan or oven thoroughly before use. Story 52. Mise en place. Prepare all your ingredients before starting the recipe. Story 53. When a recipe calls for kosher salt, it means Diamond or similar brand, not Morton's, which will be specifically mentioned in most recipes if needed. Story 54. Read recipes all the way through once before you start cooking. Prepare all ingredients and equipment in advance. Story 55. Low with a lid cooks just as well as medium but will not burn your food. If the food is not held at heat for at least 10 minutes, you are not cooking. You are warming your food. You cannot flavor a turkey by seasoning the skin. Put citrus, bacon, garlic, and rosemary inside the bird, then roast it. Let it cool, remove the fruit and bacon, and then put the bread stuffing in. The steam will flavor the meat. Jasmine rice is the best rice and worth the slight extra cost. Story 56. Get a crockpot multi-cooker and a rice cooker for times when you do not want to cook. Make salmon and rice. It feels like someone else cooked it for you when it is finished. Story 57. 1. Use fresh ingredients. Quality ingredients make a huge difference. 2. Season as you go. Layering flavors creates depth. 3. Let meat rest. Keeps juices in for better flavor. 4. Do not overcrowd the pan. This helps food cook evenly and brown properly. 5. Taste as you cook. Adjust flavors throughout to perfect the dish. Story 58. Salt your tomatoes before putting them on a sandwich. Trust me. Story 59. Water does not necessarily dilute flavor. In fact, it is a tool that, if used properly, can bring out even more flavor. Story 60. Think before you act. I mean this to say, have your ingredients prepared before you heat the first pan. Have your spices, seasonings, and herbs ready. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. The biggest thing I learned in about 10 years in restaurants is simple. It's not always going to go as you planned. Be ready to make modifications, season at every step, And for the love of everything, taste, taste, taste. Story 61. Understand that many of the fancy descriptions in a menu are also part of the recipe. From the time when chefs were wandering folk, kitchens advertised their skills by using these phrases. Come in, are you sober? Can you do this? Story 62. I have found a portable rechargeable food processor works great and saves time when dicing onions, chilies, and similar ingredients. Just make sure the bowl it comes with is made of glass, not plastic. Story 63. Flash off, boil, in the pan, both soy sauce and fish sauce, individually or together. Both of these ingredients reduce and caramelize when heated, resulting in a glorious umami flavor that will stick to whatever else you are cooking. They both work well with almost anything. Worcestershire sauce is essentially spiced fish sauce with tamarind, so even barbecue and smoking enthusiasts can benefit from the above. Story 64. If you are a beginner cook, sign up for one of the meal prep services for a while, such as Sunbasket, Marley Spoon, or Home Chef. You will receive exactly what you need for each recipe, and the instructions are simple and usually illustrated. Many of these services offer large initial discounts, and all of them allow you to cancel at any time. It is a good way to jumpstart your confidence in the kitchen. Story 65. Taste, touch, and smell everything as often as safe and practical. Knowing an ingredient and how it changes throughout the cooking process is key to mastering it. Season before and after cooking, and throughout as well if it feels right. A good knife is an investment that can last a lifetime. Story 66. Salt to taste. You probably need more salt than you think. Story 67. If cooking with stainless steel, preheat the pan so food does not stick. The pan is hot enough when you put a drop of water on it and the water dances. Use a salad spinner to remove water from the vegetables before cooking to reduce oil splatter. Boiling vinegar can help release burnt food for easier cleanup. Story 68. You do not have to use the full heat of your stove all the time. Quite the opposite. Most of the time, it is enough to get your pan hot or to bring some soup or water to a boil. Many dishes benefit from searing at lower heat for a longer time. Story 69. When it comes to seasoning, you can always add but never take away. Story 70. When it comes to seasoning, you can always add but never take away. Story 71. When do you want to eat? Take a look at all the parts you are making and subtract the time needed from your desired dining time. That way, you will know exactly when to start each item. Story 72. If you are making a savory food, always add garlic. If you are making a sweet food, always add a bit of salt. Story 73. If you are cooking for one or two, get a good toaster and air fryer oven. I use mine almost every day for baking potatoes, pizza, homemade dishes, or just warming up toast and grilled cheese sandwiches. I also bake cookies. It almost eliminates preheating the oven. Learn to use the timer. It does not heat up the house like a traditional oven. I use mine almost daily. Story 74. Learn to cook by feel. Do you feel like you do not have enough salt? Add more. Do not feel like the basil flavor is going to hit? Add more. Your taste buds will thank you. Story 75. Follow the recipe. If it calls for 1 teaspoon of salt, add 1 teaspoon of salt. Not half, not a dash, do not eyeball it. Measure out 1 teaspoon of salt. If it says 30 minutes at 350 degrees, then that is what you should do. Do not crank it up to 450 degrees for 20 minutes. Many inexperienced cooks refuse to follow recipes and just wing it however they feel, and are shocked when it does not come out right. Story 76. Add a little bit of salt to the water before you boil it. Prevents the pasta from boiling over. Story 77. As a little bit of salt is added to water before boiling, it prevents the pasta from boiling over. Story 78. Get all of your spices whole, toast them in the skillet, and grind them yourself. This does not apply to herbs, only spices. Story 79. When grilling meat such as fish, beef, pork, or chicken, use the palm method as a quick guide to knowing how well it is cooked. Open your hand and press your middle finger to the top of your palm next to your thumb. Press down on that area. This is the equivalent feeling of rare meat which applies only to beef. Move your finger to the middle of your palm. That corresponds to medium rare. Press at the heel of your palm. That indicates well done or thoroughly cooked for fish and chicken. If you cannot reach that far down with your finger, you can use the opposing finger on the same hand. I can attest to this method. I have grilled salmon, chicken, pork chops, London broil, ribs, chicken legs, and steaks. I have not done a test cut, and the results have always matched the cooking level I wanted. Story 80. Top tips. Allow sauce to reduce and cook. Use residual heat to finish cooking. Season at the beginning and throughout the process. Use your palate to balance between sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and savory. Add citrus or vinegar to enhance earthy flavors that can be flat. Story 81. Mise en place. Thanks to all the cooking shows I watch, setting up all the ingredients measured out greatly reduces my stress and cooking time compared to trying to get things as you go. Story 82. Use your ears and nose as much as, if not more than, your eyes. Story 83. The key to cooking a great steak is to let it warm up to near room temperature before cooking. If you cook it straight out of the refrigerator, you will end up with only a thin band of pink in the middle surrounded by a thick band of well done. Story 84. Put a little baking soda in the water when boiling eggs. They will be much easier to peel, and the taste is not affected. Story 85. Prepping food a little differently can completely change the flavor. The package directions are usually not the best way. Story 86. My friend, who is a great home cook, told me that when you put sugar in a dish, if sugar is needed in the recipe, add the saltiness first, such as soy sauce or salt, then taste it, followed by sugar. I usually put sugar first, then the salty ingredients. It is okay, but her tip is better. The food tastes better and so good. Story 87. Do not overcrowd your pan. Overcrowding traps steam and prevents proper browning, which is essential for flavor development. Story 88. A simplified explanation for beginner cooks. All cooking involves flavoring food and heating it to the appropriate temperature. Determine whether the best method to heat the food is baking, roasting, boiling, steaming, frying, or grilling. Decide if the best way to flavor the food is to marinate before cooking, season during cooking, or use a combination of both. These tips are helpful for learning to cook and demystify the process. Story 89. Do not be like a British person. We took all the spices and never learned how to use them. Story 90. Brush up on physics. Master the Leidenfrost effect, and all your pans will become non-stick. Story 91. This is the mysterious power of the East. If you want to cook rice in a rice cooker, gently insert your finger vertically into the rice, add water up to the first knuckle, and you can cook a pot of perfect rice. Story 92. If you need to blanch the meat, put cold water in the pot and bring it to a boil. If you need to stew the meat after it has been seared, you must add boiling water. Story 93. Good food takes time. Happy chefs cook good food. Always cook with love. Always check seasoning before serving. Follow the recipe. Story 94. Cook low and slow if you are a beginner and watch your food closely. Observe its changes and adjust the heat as needed. Story 95. Cut up all the ingredients you can before you start. You do not want to be trying to cut the last ingredient while also trying to prevent your meal from burning. You can usually just combine several ingredients together. If your stir-fry calls for bell pepper and you want to use celery instead, just do it. If your recipe simply says to cook ingredients in a pan, you can probably modify it however you want. Story 96. Always prepare and organize your ingredients before you start cooking. It makes the process smoother and helps avoid mistakes. Story 97. Cook by taste. Add a small amount, then increase gradually based on flavor to avoid overseasoning. Story 98. Salt, vinegar, water, and chicken. Boil. The chicken is ready for other preparations. Story 99. The slow cooker is excellent. There is no better way to cook chicken breast. Story 100. Cooking meats at lower temperatures is my best cooking tip for tenderness. Story 101. Don't be afraid to annotate your cookbooks. If you made a change and it worked better, write it in the book. If the cooking time was not quite right, write it in the book. If you really liked the recipe, write it in the book. Story 102. Cook with other people. Everyone has a different technique and something to learn from. Story 103. If you dislike cooking, you probably just dislike chopping. Get pre-chopped ingredients when possible, and buy frozen vegetables. Also, aim for fewer dirty dishes and utensils. One-pot recipes or sheet pan recipes are a great way to start. Once I discovered all these hacks to reduce those tasks, the range of meals I was willing to make increased. Story 104. Start cooking your spices in a little oil before adding your protein or starch. Story 105. You can improvise when cooking. If you improvise when baking, it will most likely fail. Story 106. Fish continues cooking after you remove the heat source for a few minutes. Always take it out a bit early and let it do its thing. Story 107. Your microwave is a versatile tool and does not get enough credit. I have an inexpensive one from Walmart, and I use it almost every day. You do not need anything fancy. I love using it to make small batches of simple syrup. Pop it in for 2 minutes and the water will start to boil. Switch the power level lower when reheating. Takes a little longer, but the quality is better. It can even be used to dehydrate foods. Story 108. No color means no flavor. Season with salt every time you add something to the dish. Story 109. If you have overspiced your food, making it very hot in your mouth, use sour cream in your dish to tone it down. Story 110. Just cook food that you like. Feel free to experiment and explore, but don't feel like you have to cook a bunch of popular recipes you see online to be a real cook. The most important thing is that you like what you make. Story 111. If you think something needs salt, but feel you have added enough or cannot eat too much salt, use citrus, especially lemon. The sour taste of lemon balances a dish similarly. Story 112. Get your ingredients and your preparation together before you start cooking. Story 113. Dried herbs can be great for specific uses, but for many sauces, dressings, and finishing touches, fresh herbs are a game changer. Story 114. Let your cookie dough set overnight in the refrigerator or freezer before baking. You will get smoother, better cookies that way. Story 115. If you think you have added too much salt but it still seems like it needs more, add something acidic like a squeeze of lemon or lime. Monosodium glutamate is amazing and not to be feared. A wooden skewer or toothpick will show if the oil is hot enough. If you stick a toothpick in a cake and it comes out clean, you have already overbaked it. Rest your meat before you cut into it. Story 116. Here are some stainless steel tips that took me a long time to learn. Heat your pan before you add oil. If you are browning meat and it is sticking, give it more time to cook. Do not force it. It will release. Bacon tip. Do not be afraid to flip your bacon and roll it all around. It will cook more evenly and not burn if you keep it moving in the pan. Story 117. Preheating your pan is crucial. If you add ingredients to a cold pan, it will boil them before reaching the proper temperature. Story 118. A kitchen scale is a must-have, especially when baking. Story 119. Organize and prepare all your ingredients before cooking. It makes the process smoother and more enjoyable. Story 120. Read the recipe completely when you first find it, again when you get your ingredients out, and once more when you start cooking. Nothing is worse than reaching a step and realizing you forgot to set something out to get to room temperature or forgot an ingredient entirely. Story 121. Do all the chopping and cutting preparation before you start heating. Story 122. Butter, sugar, and salt will make anything restaurant quality. Story 123. Salt, fat, acid, heat, time. Apply these principles to every savory dish you cook. Story 124. Salt can both make and break dishes. Not adding enough can result in a significant reduction of flavor. Adding too much can result in a significant reduction of any flavor besides salt. I even top my chocolate chip cookies with large flake sea salt because it brings out the flavor of the chocolate and the butter. Story 125. If it is missing something but is salty enough, you need to add an acid. Story 126. Use the freshest produce possible from a farmer's market instead of a supermarket if you have access to one. Story 127. Clean up as you go. That way, there is not too much cleaning after the meal. Story 128. If it does not sound angry with you, you probably are not sautéing on high enough heat. You are trying to get it to brown, not to steam itself. Story 129. Use metal gear, not plastic. Buy one high-quality knife and a sharpening tool. You will have them for the rest of your life, by the way. Story 130. As a general rule, you want your food to have multiple layers of taste. If you can make your food a combination of sweet, salty, sour, bitter, spicy, and umami, then it will taste good. If you can include at least 3 of these flavors, your food will start to taste complex. If you can include 3 or more of these flavors and have the taste evolve over time with changing focus, your food will be gourmet. Story 131. Get an electric pressure cooker. It makes perfect rice and excellent shredded meats. Pressure-cooked meats provide bonus broth, which can be used for cooking rice or in your main dish. It has simple settings and timers, stops itself, and keeps your food warm. Did you know you can make yogurt overnight in it? Free up burners, especially useful for large volume cooking. Story 132. Probably 50% of doing things right in the kitchen is understanding how heat transfer works and the different methods of heat transfer. Story 133. Get good non-stick pans and take care of them. Do not heat them empty. Always have some water or oil in the pan when preheating, and never heat above medium temperature. Story 134. Cooking. Pi equals 3. Baking. Pi equals 3.14. Candy making. Pi equals 3.141592655359. God help you. Story 135. You do not always want to start cooking with a hot pan. If you want the middle to heat first, like a grilled cheese sandwich, then start with a cold pan. If you are cooking a steak, you want the outside to cook first, so start with a hot pan. Story 136. Steps to defrost and soften a stick of butter. 1. Get a glass tall enough to fit the stick of butter. 2. Fill the glass with water and microwave it for a couple of minutes, or fill it with boiling water for a couple of minutes. 3. Carefully pour out the water. 4. Place the glass upside down over the butter, covering the butter inside the glass. Cover the glass with a towel to retain warmth. Do not touch it now. 5. Check after about 5 minutes. Depending on how cold the butter was initially, it will be anywhere from perfectly soft to still hard but less frozen. Repeat until soft enough. Story 137. Use rice vinegar on your rice after cooking. Velvet your beef with baking soda before cooking. If garlic is included in the recipe, double the amount. Create a small list of dishes you love and will eat repeatedly. This allows you to buy ingredients in bulk and stabilize your grocery list. If you can afford it, choose better eggs or organic air-chilled chicken. Income may vary over the years, but these 2 items make a noticeable difference in taste. Be interested in food. When you meet people from different backgrounds or cultures, show curiosity and a desire to learn. Many people, while making their simple recipes, are doing something their neighbors might find profound. Cultivate a friend group that cooks together, sharing and learning from each other. Know that sometimes you will make mistakes and end up eating pizza. That is okay. You tried, and chances are you will not make the same mistake twice. Story 138. Clean as you go. You will get used to the workflow and always have a steady stream of clean utensils. Plus, it feels overwhelming to sit down for your meal and then be forced to address a pile of dishes after something so tasty. Story 139. Your inexpensive knife can last a long time if you take care of it. Use a knife sharpener regularly, always rinse it immediately after use, and dry it promptly. Store it in a padded container. Story 141. Know the right cooking speed. Some things cannot be rushed. My boys often try to cook on high because they want to get it done quickly. Overcooked food, sometimes burnt, is the result. 2. If you want everyone to come to the table with an appetite, Sauté onions and garlic. That aroma will wake up their tummies. 3. When planning a meal, start with your plate-to-table time and calculate backwards to figure out your milestone points. For example, if I want to eat at 6 o'clock, this small pork roast needs 2 hours, so it has to be in the oven by 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, the glazed carrots only take 40 minutes, so they get started by 5:20. The rice takes 12 minutes. Start at 5:45 and allow extra time for fluffing and cooling. When the rice goes on the stove, that is when I start setting the table. Story 141. Concentrate on what you are cooking the whole time. Maybe not during the baking or slow stewing stage, but check it regularly. Also, taste it often. Story 142. Learn the 5 mother sauces, and you can make every sauce. Learn the basic ingredients of everything else. It takes just a couple of minutes to make mayonnaise, whipped cream, or butter, maybe 20 minutes for butter to strain, but then you also get buttermilk. Make what you need to order from scratch. That leftover half-gallon of milk going bad can be made into cheese, used to prepare a lasagna, chilled or frozen. This greatly cuts down on grocery costs for all the pre-made items you buy. It is easier than you think. Story 143. Use spices or do not be surprised when the food is bland. Story 144. Salting your pasta water to taste like the ocean usually adds too much salt. Season according to your sauce or condiment. Use less salt with a bolognese sauce and a little more with aglio e olio. Story 145. Most cutting and chopping in the kitchen is most efficiently done with a chef's knife. Get a good one and take care of it. Even strategized chopping really does improve the quality of your food. Create your own signature flavor. Many people like to add monosodium glutamate or Maggi seasoning cubes to everything they can. For me, it's a little bit of olive juice. Not for everyone, but I love what it adds to almost anything savory and saucy I'm making. Germs are real. Always consider the possibility of cross-contamination. Even if your food tastes amazing, nobody wants to eat it again if they get sick. Save your bacon and chicken grease. Use pasta water in your pasta sauce. Story 146. When you see chicken stock in a recipe and you do not have any, just use water. You will be fine. Story 147. As a Brit who loves cooking, I have picked up some simple yet profound tips over the years that have transformed my kitchen experience. One of my favorites is the importance of seasoning at every stage. When I first started cooking, I added salt and pepper at the end, but now I realize that adding a pinch at each step helps build layers of flavor. Another tip is to invest in a good quality knife. I remember struggling with a dull one, which made chopping vegetables a tedious chore. Once I got a sharp chef's knife, everything changed. It is safer, quicker, and even more enjoyable. Also, do not underestimate the power of a good stock. Making my own chicken or vegetable stock has elevated my soups and risottos beyond what store-bought options could achieve. A simple stock can infuse dishes with richness that is truly remarkable. Lastly, I highly recommend keeping fresh herbs on hand. I grow basil and parsley in pots on my windowsill, and just a sprinkle can elevate a dish from ordinary to extraordinary. Cooking should be a joyful experience, so do not be afraid to experiment and make it your own. These simple tips have made a profound difference in how I approach my meals, making every dish feel special. Story 148. 1. Mise en place. Prepare all of your ingredients before even touching a pan. 2. Salt more than you think. For your dish to truly shine, you need more salt than most people realize. Do not add too much salt at once during testing. Be measured as you increase the salt in your recipes. All of the flavors will be enhanced much more than you realize. These are the top 2 for me. Story 149. If you seasoned your food well but it still tastes a little bland and like something is missing, add more salt. It enhances the flavors significantly. Add it gradually and taste regularly until your dish tastes more intense and different. Story 150. Not everything needs to be cooked on the highest heat setting. Story 151. 4 perfectly timed boiled eggs. Boil the water first, then set the timer. 8 minutes for hard-boiled, 4.5 minutes for soft-boiled. Story 152. One tip that has transformed my cooking is to always taste as you go. It really helps to balance flavors and adjust seasoning before serving. Another profound lesson I have learned is the importance of letting ingredients shine. Sometimes the simplest dishes with high-quality ingredients can be the most satisfying. Story 153. Cook what you feel like eating the way you like to eat it. It does not matter if it is not perfectly authentic. It is okay to twist it the way you like it. Story 154. I was a hungry boy with hollow legs, skinny as a rake. My mother said, "If you like to eat, learn to cook." I did. I would disappear into the kitchen and come back with something tasty to the dismay of my lazy sisters. I passed the advice on to my 3 sons. They could all prepare a family meal by the age of 12. The incentive was the cook does not clean up. They were also hungry boys. They would eat a large meal, then eat another one. The problem was finding pots and pans big enough. Story 155. Add more salt than you think you need. Use acids such as vinegar or lemon juice to lift a dish. Prepare everything beforehand. Sharpen your knives. Story 156. Whatever you are cooking continues to cook once it is removed from heat. Consider that in your decision-making. Story 157. If you think you do not have enough spaghetti, you have enough. Trust me. Story 158. If you can smell it by the belly button, turn back. In other words, in reality and not a professional kitchen, if it smells or feels off, it is probably spoiled. There is no saving it. Just throw it out. An exception is cheese. The stronger the smell, the better. Story 159. Experiment slowly or on yourself when cooking. Never experiment when baking. Story 160. When cooking beef, always pat it dry. If you're making a stew, whether it's beef, pork, or lamb, always sear your meat in a very hot pan. When putting anything in a pan with hot oil, never throw it from afar or too high. Also, don't do it fast. If it's a slice of meat, gently place it in the pan so the oil doesn't splash. Always use natural fat over processed oils. Some of the best are pork fat, beef fat, goose fat, or duck fat. They also add a lot of flavor. I like to use bird fats for cooking bird meat and so on, but it's not exclusive. These fats are much healthier than vegetable, sunflower, or rapeseed oils. Do not use olive oil for frying. Use avocado oil for frying if you don't want to use lard. Use olive oil for drizzling on salad or cooked meals. When cooking pasta, never cover the pot. Always cook on high heat. For perfect cooking, add 3 times more water than the amount of pasta. For 500 grams of pasta, add 1.5 liters of water. By the time all the water evaporates, your pasta will be perfectly cooked. I like to add extra water and save it to thicken the sauce later, but that depends on the dish. This method does not work for homemade pasta. If you keep tasting the sauce and it's salty enough but still seems to be missing something, add a spoon of sugar. If not that, squeeze a bit of lime. It really depends on the dish and the flavor you want. Keep your knives sharp. It should go without saying. I've had friends tell me how much they like to cook. Then I visited their homes and found they don't have a single sharp knife, and I had to buy a sharpener just to start cooking. For someone who can cook and enjoys it, this is very embarrassing. If you say you like to cook but don't take care of your knives, you're fooling yourself. You might just like the idea of being able to cook one day. When cooking with alcohol like wine or beer, always let the alcohol cook off, reduce it by half, before adding other ingredients. That's about it off the top of my head. There is much more, of course. Story 161. Let your steak reach room temperature before cooking. Let it rest before cutting. Story 162. Use the Paprika app. It scrapes recipes from recipe websites even behind a paywall so you do not have to deal with pages of poor search engine optimization. I use it to download a recipe, and if I like it, I keep it. If not, deleting is just a click. It is an absolute game changer. Story 163. As with any other craft, good tools matter. If you consistently burn basic meals, the problem may be your equipment rather than your skills. Upgrade to something better. If price is an issue, try cast iron cookware. It is good enough to do the job, lasts a lifetime with proper care, and will not break the bank. Story 164. Pat your chicken dry before cooking. This will make it juicier. Story 165. When do you want to eat? Take a look at all the parts you are making and subtract the time needed from your desired dining time. That way, you will know exactly when to start each item. Story 166. Butter is another secret that can enhance the flavor of dishes. Add it to soups, sauces, stews, and even plain vegetables. It truly finishes the dish and adds a wonderful richness. Story 167. Never attempt to fry something in a cold pan or cold oil. Heat both the pan and the oil or butter if that is what you are using. If frying in butter, heat it so that all the water in the butter cooks off before you add your food. It is okay to keep butter at room temperature. Just keep the butter covered. Story 168. Never attempt to fry something in a cold pan or cold oil. Heat both the pan and the oil or butter if that is what you are using. If frying in butter, heat it until all the water in the butter evaporates before adding your food. It is acceptable to keep butter at room temperature. Just keep the butter covered. Story 169. Never attempt to fry something in a cold pan or cold oil. Heat up both the pan and the oil or butter if that is what you are using. If frying in butter, heat it until all the water in the butter evaporates before you add your food. It is okay to keep butter at room temperature. Just keep the butter covered. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.